every time I interacted with them, the blowback would be like Freddy Krueger. Like that quote, insanity is continuing to do the same thing, expecting different results. I was exhausted like a pitcher pouring dust. And then my friend asked me a question that changed everything. And it is easily repeatable for you to do with whomever is killing you softly. I'm clairvoyant, a near-death experiencer, and a spiritual pragmatist helping you to spiritually adult. So as a self-proclaimed empath and people pleaser, my life was really run by fearsome emotions. I would do anything to avoid being judged or disliked. I would pretzel myself for other people, certain people, every time I interacted with them. The blowback would be like Freddy Krueger. Like that quote, insanity is continuing to do the same thing every time, expecting different results. I was exhausted like a pitcher pouring dust. And then my friend asked me a question that changed everything. And it is easily repeatable for you to do with whomever is killing you softly. For me, the example was my former husband. And this was years after the divorce. And I kept clinging to the idea of I want to be a good person. But after a certain incident, the result was terrible. One-sided argument while I just kind of soaked it in. And that's when my friend asked, if that was anyone else, what would you do? I'd be like, okay. And I would not engage with that person again, like done. And she's like, then why do you doing the same thing in this relationship? Meaning there are adjustments I had to make that were not about not being a good person, but they were about like absorbing negative emotion from others. Because you want to be a good person and not argue back. That is arming. And the perception of your worth. And I'm speaking like absolutely from my experience. And this is still something I struggle with today. That question, how would you respond if this was a stranger? That's what I found to be most helpful because it made it really objective. Then you are honoring yourself without abandoning your own nervous system. And yes, remain a kind person, but has very common sense boundaries. They're not punitive boundaries. They're just made for your personal comfort. What I do now is super simple. I have a black and white boundary, and anytime a conversation goes into screaming, I say, I totally want to talk about this, but not when you're screaming. So let's talk about it later, and I'm going to hang up now. And then I hang up. And this could seem so scary. And at the same time, right next to that fear was a sense of dignity I had never experienced. And that's just a really great tip to handle one of the most common dynamics with who are empaths and people pleasers. I'll meet you in the next one.